Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where as we discussed yesterday, there was a lot of social media chatter and media coverage of the MTV Movie Awards. Very successful event. I think perhaps more successful than any they've had in the recent past. That producing team really nailed it. I'm sure they had a big party and hopefully bonus checks for everybody. But anyway, what everybody has been talking about over the past 24 hours or so, in addition to the trailers that were shown and the clips, was Emma Watson, Millie Bobby Brown, Moonlight winning Best Kiss, but also Dafne Keen and Hugh Jackman winning Best Duo, and their adorable acceptance speech and pose, right? That got a lot of coverage. And Dafne Keen, sure enough, she and her management team have used that momentum to land her next role. Don't get too excited. It's not amazing, but at least she's continuing to work. That's the name of the game at this point, making sure she doesn't disappear from Hollywood's radar and that she continues to be an option for Fox to potentially make an X23 movie or an X-Men movie that has X23 in the cast, right? Make no mistake, that is the long game that Dafne Keen and her management team are playing. But they got to make sure she continues to work and doesn't just go home, because then Fox will either forget about her, or if they do remember her, they'll be like, well, she's not really working, so maybe we should age up, you know, the character, right? Because that was one of the suggestions I had, because I wasn't a huge Dafne Keen fan in Logan, as you might recall from my review. I thought she did a great job with her action sequences, and I thought she was fabulous with her berserker rage, but I felt there was I didn't quite connect with her personally. And that might have been largely how the role was written, but sometimes an actor can overcome that. Like Hugh Jackman, although she's a much younger actor, obviously, and perhaps that's a skill she is developing. And I say developing because I'm starting to like Dafne Keen. I thought that pose with her and Hugh Jackman did a lot for her. It was a great photo, and if I were her management team, I'd be sending that to everybody. I'd be like, did you see this photo? Isn't it adorable? She's so likable, right? And as we've discussed many times, when you have a hit, you want to spend that capital. You want to, in this case though, strike while the golden popcorn is still hot. So she was, I think very cleverly, her management team was able to announce a new role. Even though, again, it's not a great role, but she's continuing to work. There's a famous story between Jack Nicholson and Terry Garr. And Terry Garr's like, Jack Nicholson, the parts I get offered are just such crap, I don't want to take any of them. And Jack Nicholson was like, Terry, an actor X. And what he meant by that is you need to continue to work. You need to keep your name out there. You have to, you don't want to have a reputation for someone who turns stuff down all the time, right? Because then the offers will stop coming in. You got to take something. And so he was saying, you got to work. And also, you never know what might inspire someone to cast you, especially if you're not someone who generates their own material. Jack Nicholson doesn't produce movies, right? Dafne Keen, as of yet, isn't producing movies. She needs someone to pick her. So even if no one sees a movie, like sometimes I'll review a movie and I'll be like, you shouldn't watch this, but casting directors should. So you never know what someone might see. It might just be one person, the casting director, a director, a writer, a producer, just someone is like, oh, that really spoke to me. I liked it. I'm going to hire that person for potentially a project that will be really big, right? So that's, you got to keep yourself out there. So she wants to make sure that she seems like she's working. So this is the film. Again, don't get your hopes too up. All right, so it's called Ana, and she's going to star opposite Luis Guzman, but she is the lead, so that's nice. Although she was kind of the co-lead in Logan. But anyway, it's another road trip, and they're trying to save Luis Guzman's character from bankruptcy. It's extremely similar to Logan, and they're going to film in Puerto Rico. And I think that that's good because I think she's going to want to build up her reputation or her relationship with the Latino audience here in the United States, which is a huge movie-going audience. They get increasingly powerful all the time. Like, for instance, they built the Fast and Furious franchise. I'll never forget when I was covering, back when I was doing theater audience interviews for The Wolfman, and Benicio del Toro was playing that character, and it really was touching to me how important it was that people, moviegoers from Puerto Rico who had Puerto Rican heritage, how much it meant to them. The Wolfman was played by a Puerto Rican actor. It was really amazing. So, that's a very loyal audience, and so I think that it would be helpful to Dafne Keen to tap into that. So hopefully that's a purpose that this movie will serve, even if it doesn't get a lot of box office and no one really sees it. And I think with Luis Guzman, it's not going to be a big awards contender. Sorry, Luis Guzman. but if it can at least accomplish that, and it's another movie where she stars, I think it's a good use of her time. And again, she might not have any other offers, which speaks a lot to, how difficult it is to build a career as a child actor. Also, some of you might be pointing out her heritage is from Spain, but, I think there's, of course, a commonality there, and I think, she played a character from Mexico in Logan, and so I think that opportunity is there, and I think it's a smart move. So her career, it's not on fire, but it's slow and steadily building. All right, now speaking of casting, Cliff Curtis was just cast he's from Fear the Walking Dead, although he's been working for a long time. That's his most current success. So Cliff Curtis has been cast in the upcoming Avatar films, and he's going to play Tonowari, the leader of the Metkayina, who are the reef people of Avatar. Of that planet. So the Na'vi, I guess, are on land, and the Tonowari are in the water, right? And it's interesting. You have another Pacific Islander cast as an aquatic people, which I think is wonderful. Jason Momoa obviously playing Aquaman, although his heritage comes from the land because Nicole Kidman plays his mother, and they have a Native American actor playing his father who ran the lighthouse. So they kind of switched it around. Willem Dafoe and Patrick Wilson are the sea people. So Patrick Wilson actually looks a lot like Aquaman looks in the comics. So that's very interesting. So anyway, Cliff Curtis is he's a working actor. He's like J.K. Simmons before he won an Oscar. He works. He's very well known, very talented actor, but just never got that big breakout role. So anyway, the Na'vi, it's interesting. James Cameron, sometimes it seems like his world building is a little too simplistic, right? Or you're like, that seems kind of lame, James. But it always works. He really knows what he's doing. I think he has an ability to tap into like a soap opera type. I think you have to really respect his ability to tap into people's emotions. There's just something, he has a really good ability to just kind of hook people emotionally. It's very impressive. Sometimes, even if it seems a little schmaltzy on the surface, he gets you. And he doesn't always get everybody, but you can't deny that the two most successful films of all time, to this date, are still his. So he knows what he's doing. Pocahontas in Space turned out to be a really good idea. Although it's been so long, I really question the viability of these 4 follow-ups. But don't ever underestimate James Cameron. So anyway, Cliff Curtis is signed on to play this, what I imagine is a motion capture character for 4 movies. And this also plays into an underwater craze that's coming up in movies. You have Aquaman, Avatar now, and of course they're getting ready to do The Little Mermaid at Disney. And it's very interesting, when I was visiting the VFX team for Justice League, they talked to me about how they shot dry for wet because it's so hard to work in a water tank. James Cameron will tell you that from his Titanic days. Whew, that was a mess, but it obviously turned out great. But anyway, and also it's hard to act underwater, how you can deliver lines, but they've gotten really good, and you've seen it in some of the Aquaman snippets, of putting people in harnesses and they float in the air and they move around, and then you animate their hair, and you've seen that also in the upcoming Pirates movie too with Javier Bardem, to give it that underwater look. So they're shooting everything just in the open air, suspended from wires, to give it that floating effect, and then the hair and the clothes are added later. Obviously that's another reason you don't want your underwater people to wear too much, because it makes you not have to animate as much. For instance, for Aquaman, Jason Momoa's hair and beard are fully animated. That's so cool. They're very good at it. They did a fabulous job over there. John DJ Desjardins and Brian Hirota, who I've interviewed. And if you want to see that interview, there'll be a link at the end of the video. So anyway, that's what's going on with Cliff Curtis. I welcome to the Avatar movies. I hope you survive the experience. All right, so then, speaking of careers, Ben Stiller, interestingly enough, is going to Showtime. He's going to direct all 8 episodes of a true crime series called Escape at Clinton Correctional. What a great name. And it's going to be based on the 2015 true story of 2 prisoners who had an affair with the married female prison guard who was overseeing their workroom, and she helped them to escape. You might remember this story from, not the main news sites, but the tabloid news sites were all over this. And it's shaping up very well. So Ben Stiller will direct all 8 episodes. I wonder if he'll have a small supporting role. Benicio del Toro has signed on to play one of the 2 prisoners. And then Patricia Arquette will play the female Guard. That's fabulous. There's, of course, 2 Oscar winners. You know, I think this is going to be riding the coattails of Night Of on HBO, fabulous prison drama, and also, of course, Orange is the New Black on Netflix. So this sounds very, very promising to me. And I think it's interesting Ben Stiller has to try and really redefine himself right now after the disastrous Zoolander 2 and Walter Mitty, both of which he also directed, and neither one connected. His last hit was Night at the Museum 3, and even that wasn't a huge hit. And so he's really struggling as of late. And so I hope that going to TV, he produces a lot too. It's things that he's not in or has little small parts here and there. But I hope that going to Showtime might give him a new lease on his work. Because I like Ben Stiller. I think he's very talented. Not always though. Zoolander 2 really let me down. As you might recall, I thought the first trailers for that were so strong, but little did we know that they put all the good parts in all the good parts of the movie were the trailer. All right, so anyway, those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, speaking of directors, I got a fabulous question yesterday from Anya Flavia Andrade. And it says, "Hello, Grace." I'm sorry, I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation of your name too much. So Anna says, "Hello, Grace. I love your videos. Do you think it's possible that Patty Jenkins could direct Man of Steel 2? That is such a fabulous question, Anna. As soon as I saw it, I was like, tune into Morning Movie News tomorrow. I'm answering your question. Because it speaks to a really interesting next step that it's imperative for female directors to stick around. And that's to go from all these opportunities they're getting to direct movies that feature female leads, you know, from these big blockbuster films, to being trusted with a film with a male lead. You know, you have male directors do female lead movies all the time. Sarah Connor from Terminator, James Cameron, Francis Lawrence doing the Hunger Games movies with Jennifer Lawrence, and then of course, you know, Ridley Scott with Ripley and Alien, right? Also Aliens, James Cameron. Again, James Cameron, so talented. I'm a big James Cameron fan. All right, so anyway, who isn't, right? Even though sometimes personally he's a little objectionable. But anyway, that's the big question. You know, after Patty Jenkins does Wonder Woman and Anna Boden, she's co-directing with Ryan Fleck, does Captain Marvel, and Ava DuVernay does A Wrinkle in Time. Although Ava DuVernay was offered Black Panther, she had the opportunity to jump right to this step. And as I've said before, it's frustrating that she turned it down because it was such a big deal, not only for a female director to get a project so strong, so big, like with the Black Panther movie, and I feel she could have really done a fabulous job, but she would have been a female director on a male-led project. That would have been so groundbreaking, and yet another way, you know, forget the usual, you know, that would have been like bonus points like a gabillion, right? But she said no, and Ryan Coogler got the gig, and he's going to do a fabulous job. I'm sure he's a really talented director. So that's the next step for female directors. They have to get a project that's a big blockbuster movie that features a male lead. That would be kind of like female directors made it. And the movie would have to obviously do well for this to work. So that's, you know, to answer your question, Anna, for Patty Jenkins to do Man of Steel 2, she's very interested in Superman. She said that she's based a lot of her Wonder Woman movie on the first Richard Donner Superman movie, which was very influential to her. So she might be interested. But then, of course, you would think that maybe she'd be interested in doing a Wonder Woman sequel, right? That might take her, you know, take priority. But the question would be, how well does Wonder Woman do at the box office? What are the reviews like? That's the 2 things she's going to have to do really well with to get another gig at Warner Brothers. And my concern is that I think that the action seems light so far on Wonder Woman. I hope they're just saving it for the movie. But the fact that they can't showcase another big action sequence in the trailers or even hint at one besides the ones we've already seen so many times at this point is scary to me. I hope that's not the case when we see the actual movie, but I would have liked that to have been hinted at, you know, in the ad campaign. And as I said, just hinted, doesn't have to be given away. Because one of the problems with female directors, which has held them back in the past, is either an unknowingness or an unwillingness to embrace the needs that they need to meet financially and from a business perspective. You know, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to tell the Wonder Woman story that I'm interested in. You're like, that's good, but you also have to tell the one that people want to see. You know, you have to meet them in the middle. You know, there's that famous saying, it's like, instead of giving the audience what they want, give them what they don't know they want. But my answer to that would be you need to do both. You need to give them what they want so they show up, and then you need to be like, look, I gave you what you want, but look at this. And then they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I wanted that. Thank you so much. And so I'm starting to become concerned that Patty Jenkins might not have checked all the boxes she needs to from a business perspective to make this successful. So we'll see. And the boxes are so easy to check. Back when I wrote Superbia, my original comic for Boom Studios, at the top of my outline, I'd always write action, sex, and violence. You know, I would put that even when I was writing each page. It was always at the top of my notes to remind me, does this, because these were issues, does each issue check that box? Because that's what people, that's what emotionally and viscerally sells. So you got to have it, you know, especially if it's a big action thing. And you don't have to have like a sex scene, but is there like a sexy element? And I hope that Wonder Woman checks all three of those boxes multiple times because, you know, a big flourishy checks, right? That's really important. So so Anna, that's my answer to your question. I hope that this is the progression that things happen with female directors. I think we're on the cusp of it, and I'm sure that some woman director will accomplish it soon, but it remains to be seen if it's any of the women who are currently on the board. All right, thank you so much. And also, I'd be curious if you guys want Patty Jenkins to direct Man of Steel too. I think we can't speak to that until we see Wonder Woman. All right, so everybody, thank you for tuning into today's episode. Please write down below what you think today's top 3 stories, Anna's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.